Good morning, girls. Welcome to the subject of productions and operation management. We have been dealing with unit number 3 since last few lectures. That is all about facility layout, right? And the syllabus includes these many points. That means this is the content of the syllabus, and we have already initiated and completed almost half the way. In the previous lecture, we have done with the principles of the layout. That means what could be the guideline. If we follow the guideline of having the perfect layout, then we can achieve the maximum goals, right? Those principles we have studied in the detail in the previous lecture, as well as we have taken up with the layout problems. Now, what are these layout problems? At the time of laying a new structure, or maybe designing or redesigning the existing structure, there may be many problems that the manufacturer has to face, and those problems we have checked out in detail in the layout problems. Even in the previous lecture, we have studied the marks of good layout for manufacturing as well as the back office. This is what we have done in the previous lecture. I repeat one more time, what is layout? Thus, plant layout is the appropriate arrangement of machinery, equipments and other industrial facilities. The main purpose of plant layout is to achieve the fastest, smoothest and the production at the minimum cost. We have discussed, as I told you, we have discussed the principles, we have discussed the layout problems and marks of a good layout also. Girls, let me tell you, whenever you are studying this subject, you should carry the book with you. You should have the book before you so that you can jot down few important points continuously since the lecture or the unit starts. I keep on repeating what we are doing and how are we getting connected with what the present point that we are discussing. So you have to be very careful that you should have a written note before you, so that you can, when you are listening to the lecture or when you are having an overview of the PowerPoint presentation, you can ultimately relate to whatever the content of the unit is. So today and in the further lectures to come, we are going to deal with the very important part, that is the types of layout, and we are going to study as many as 5 types of layout in the different sense, right? As far as your examination point of view is concerned, yes, this is the very crucial part, because almost all the times there is invariably a question being asked from this section, that is types of layout, and from that point of view it is very, very important. So here we are, what is types of layout? Types is nothing but different designs. See, one manufacturing unit cannot have or whatever it follows, whatever the design it follows of its own manufacturing section, that cannot be repeated, or the same layout cannot be stereotypically used for the other different manufacturing products also. So at a time there may be single type that you may be using and the other manufacturers may be using the different types. So here what we are going to do, because we do not have a single setup which can be used for all the types of products, may it be engineering product, may it be cement manufacturing, may it be refinery, whatever type of product or whatever the goods are being manufactured, we cannot have a single setup, right? That means one setup cannot be used for multiple products or say different types of diversified product, and at that time we may require different types of layouts, and those different types of layout, depending upon the requirement of the manufacturer or the demand of the product, that means whatever the requirement of the product is, accordingly you may have to set the structure, you may have to have the plant layout done, you may have to do the designing, and that is what is known as types of layout, right? We will study as many as I told you, 5 types of layout. But before that, let us just introduce what is this all about. By now we know that the layout is nothing but arranging, placing or grouping the machines for the purpose of production. There cannot be any single type of setup that can be used for the production of various items. That is what I told you, that for different items you cannot have a single type of layout. For sugar manufacturing or for engineering goods, there cannot be a single setup which can be used for all the types of goods manufacturing, and that is why we may have different setup, and those different setup, those different designs are said to be different types of layout. That means the design and the style differs from product to product, and it highly depends upon the requirement of manufacturer and goods itself. In this section, we will study few basic types of layout that are generally used for production, right? As I told you, there cannot be a single type. You have to keep on changing the types. If one manufacturer follows the type that is being taken up by the other manufacturer of totally diversified goods, then that cannot be the criteria, or that cannot be used ideally. That is why for a manufacturer there are options available, that whatever the production of the goods he takes up or whatever his requirement is, accordingly he can select from these various types that we will study, and from that a style or type he may adopt one of the types, or he may mix few types and can have his own particular setup for his own goods only, or for limited to his own unit only. That is why we are studying here the types of layout. Types of layout, mind you, is nothing but it's a design of how you are going to arrange your machineries and facilities, so that we can have the fastest, the smoothest and the most effective production done. And because all the manufacturing of the goods do not have same requirements, we have to adopt different types of designing, and those different types of designing we are going to check out here in the part to come, right? If you can see in the slide, there are as many as 5 types. Product layout, which can be also known as straight line layout. It is process layout, that is functional layout. It can be third one, that is static layout and fixed position layout, or fourth one can be cellular layout, or we call it group technology layout. The fifth one is all about combined layout, or it is also known as hybrid layout. Now, we shall study these layouts one by one. That means, according to your syllabus, we do have 5 types of layouts, and one by one, each type we are going to study in detail. Mind you students, as far as the product layout and process layout, that is 1 and 2 is concerned, right, it's quite a kind of wide thing to understand. It may take a little bit of more time to understand as compared to 3, 4 and 5. But what I have done is, with the simple example and with the simple drawings, we will try to understand what is what. And that is why, say as far as the product layout and process layout is concerned, I'll be carrying it over with one lecture each. Right? That means we will not hustle up with studying all the types of layout at once. One by one we shall study gradually, so that one is clear. What is, suppose product layout we are going for, then what is product layout? Where it is used, what is mostly the pattern, right? And what can be the example that can be quoted, what are the advantages and disadvantages. This is what one type carries with it. That means if you are studying one type of layout, you have to study this much, and that is why we will go gradually with each lecture and each type. Right? As I told you, 3rd, 4th, 5th may not require that much of deep understanding, but as far as the 1st and 2nd is concerned, and yes, from the examination point of view also, the 1st and 2nd is quite a lot of important, right? So here we are going to check out with number 1. Let us study the product layout, but before that we can see it on the slide that there are 5 types that has been mentioned. It is product layout, process layout, cellular layout, hybrid layout and mixed position layout. That means, again, as you can see it in the diagram, there are as many as 5 types that we are going to study one by one. Right? To begin with, today we will have the look at a product layout, or it is also known as line layout in detail. Now, before starting this session, or before starting this type of layout, let me make one thing very clear, that here I have simplified the description with the different points. Each point is important to understand the layout as a whole, and that is why it should be very clear that we do not mix up the product layout and process layout together. That is why I have bifurcated it. We will not study both the things together. Here we are totally focusing on one single layout, that is product layout. And mind you, keep your books with you and pens ready, so that when you are listening to the lecture, you can, with the help of drawing and with the help of few simple points, you can make the layout very clear to yourself. So let us begin. Product layout. Product means any type of goods. We know this. Layout is kind of designing. And line layout, here we are trying to say about the straight line layout. Okay, it is also known as line layout. Here, one by one point, I am going to read it and I am going to explain it to you. Product layout refers to a production system where the workstations and equipments are arranged in the sequence in which the raw material falls for the production or will be operated. Product layout refers to what kind of system in which there are different workstations, different equipments, but they are arranged in a sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and likewise. Everything is sequentially arranged, and once you have the raw material from one process, it will directly move on to the second, to the third, and it will follow the sequence of its operation, and that is very, very important. It is also known as line layout, as I told you. Now, what is the speciality? Here, the work is done in small parts or amount at which the workstations which falls in the straight line. That means, supposingly, if we are producing product A, and product A requires 5 stages. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 and number 5. That means you have to pour in the raw material to produce A in machine number 1, which is first placed. Right? Once the small part of work is done on this machine A, it automatically gets transferred into machine number 2. Once there is a small part done of the work of machine 2, it will gradually pass on to 3, 4 and 5 likewise. That means a small part of work is done at each machine on the raw materials. To use the product layout, the total work to be performed has to be divided into small tasks that may be assigned, or that can be assigned to each of the workstations accordingly. That means one machine is not manufacturing everything. To manufacture a product, it may have to undergo 5 different machines in our case. And in these 5 machines, at each machine, a small task is performed. Then it transfers to the next machine and to the next in a proper sequence, and at each machine a small task is being performed on the set of raw materials, and at the end what do we have is product A. So the workstation do small work of the work, as I told you, for which the stations utilizes specific techniques and equipments. Here when we are talking about workstation, it's nothing but a place wherein the equipments are arranged and the work is being performed. So it is workstation. The technical term has been used there. Otherwise, do not get confused. It has nothing to do with any other station. It is workstation, means workstation is the place where the work is being performed. So whatever techniques you require, whatever machines you require at first stage, that is available here, right? And further the machines takes their own work. I repeat, the workstation do small amount of work for which the station utilizes specific techniques and equipments modified to the individual job they are designed. Suppose if we are producing product A, number 1 machine is doing the cutting work of the sheet, right? That means if the whole aluminum sheet is there, at the first stage it has to be cut into the say a different measurement sheet is to be cut in the different measurement. Now that is what is said to be the cutting machine, which is locating at the first stage, or which the workstation has been located in the sequence at first. That means whatever is required to cut the sheet of the aluminium, that is available at this stage. This helps to have a higher rate of production at the end. It only does the cutting work, and suppose then it passes to machine number 2. It does suppose the polishing work, right? At the third stage it takes up with rolling work. That means likewise whatever the machines are being placed, one by one the product gets, the raw material, the semi-finished goods gets passed on to the next session or next workstation, with the purpose of getting a little bit of modification. And at the end then we have, after a sequence of production, we may have the product being produced. This helps to have higher rate of production. That means if you want to produce something in bulk, this is the best thing to do. All machinery that is required need to be arranged in the sequence or order. That should be kept in mind, that product layout is all about arranging the machines which are required in a proper sequence. This is also known as product line layout. Motor car production is the best example for the same. One example is also used to understand the layout properly. See, if we are taking up with the different examples, then maybe the automobile goods assembly line. In such a kind of production houses, the type that is used is this type, because here what is important? The product is important, the sequence is important. Keep two things in mind. Here the product is given the highest amount of importance, and then the sequence. That means you cannot have randomly set the sequence. One by one only the process goes on. So, in a product line layout, various facilities such as machines, equipments, workforce, etc. are located as per the sequence of operations or work on parts. Workload is balanced on various machines to ensure the successful layout. That means more or less the time taken or maybe the work done on each machine is being divided in a balanced way, right? That means supposingly if 15 minutes is being taken to cut the sheet by first process or first machine, then almost the same kind of workload is being distributed to second, third, fourth and fifth machine, right? So work is being balanced here in such a kind of setup. This layout is preferred when the production is continuous. This you should keep in mind. Product layout can be best used when the production is to be done in a continuous basis. That means on a continuous basis, सतत जो काम चलता है, सतत production चलता है, one by one the raw material is being fed in, and you have at the end you have the finished goods produced. That means invariably the layout that we will be using would be product layout, right? Part variety is less. That means variations are nowhere. Flexibility is almost nil in such a kind of production type. Production volume is high and demand is comparatively stable. That means wherein you have these kind of specifications where you want to produce something in bulk, where the variety is minimized. That means standardized goods are being produced and the demand of the product is also comparatively stable. આવું જ્યાં સ્પેસિફિકેશન જરૂરી હોય ત્યારે you can go with this kind of layout which is known as product layout. Now few more points. In this layout, product plays a dominating role over process. I told you just a couple of minutes before that product is very important than anything else. Here the process is not important, product is important. It plays a dominating role. That means machines are arranged in such a point where the product requires its services. Suppose at the first point, we continue with the aluminum sheet example. If at the first machine it is only cutting that is being done, in the second machine say only the polishing of the sheets are being done. That means the production or the type of service that is required is arranged in a proper sequence, right? Next, the product that requires a continuous flow for the production. This is the most suitable layout. Again, in this types, the machine arrangement does not require frequent changes. No changes are there, or minimum changes are required. Once it is set forever. Raw materials are fed in the first machine and the finished goods come out of the last machines. It is highly advantageous for mass scale production of standardized products. That means standardized means એક ધારા પ્રોડક્ટ જ્યાં પેટર્નમાં બહુ ફેર નથી પડતો. Say engineering products like bolts are there, say kind of bearings are there જે અમુક સ્પેસિફિકેશનના એક ધારા પ્રોડ્યુસ થતા હોય. At that time you need such a kind of layout which is product layout. Means once you feed in the raw material, it goes on from one to the next one and to the next one. That means the sequence is being fixed and there are hardly any variations in the sequence. When you need such a kind of work to be done, it is always that product layout is the best option. It is suitable for we are giving the examples here. It is suitable for the refineries, maybe textiles or cement industry. It is also suitable for assembling industries like scooters, cars, washing machines, etc. Multiple products with different line of processing can also use this production or product layout. That means multiple products are being produced, right? But at the same time you need different set of machines. Then A may be produced in one channel, B may be produced in this next, C likewise you may have multiple products under the product line setup, because whatever machines you are using for the first product may not be used for the next and the next product. Then for all the kind of multiple products you may have the different setup there. Here I have quoted an example of product layout. Just studying the example or just looking at the diagram, I think more or less the product layout should be clear to you. Let us study an example of simple car wash. You must have heard that there is a proper service station for car wash, right? When a car goes for a wash, it undergoes different stages. And here the simplest example I have quoted so that the product layout is clear to you, right? This example was once quoted by the University of Washington, and the same example in a simpler form I have placed it here so that we can come to know how the product layout works. Suppose the car enters. See, you check the series, right? You check the boxes that has been given. Each box means each type of machines and equipments and facilities being used for each type of work. Suppose the car enters. Next stage it goes for clean out. The other stage it goes for hot water spray. Fourth one, top wash and brush. Fifth one, side wash and brush. Next it goes for rinse spray. It goes for hot blower. Then the hand wipe and cleaning of the car is done and the car is ready with a car wash and it goes away. That means the exit and the entry of from the entry till exit, the sequence is being followed, right? One by one the car moves from the first facility to the next one and to the next one, and likewise at the end, after the hand wipe and cleaning, it goes for the exit and it is almost, the work is almost done. That means if you see the diagram, it tells you that there is entry, the arrow is being followed for each of the kind of machines or facilities. The production goes on one by one, the sequence is followed, and at the end what do we have is the car wash being done. So when any product that falls in a proper sequence, right, and it undergoes a proper channel one by one by its own, there are hardly any changes, there are standardized production done, high volume of goods are to be produced, it is always that product layout is advisable. Now when you study the above example, we can see very well and we can understand that the facilities or equipments required to clean the car are arranged in a proper sequence, as I told you, and the flow of process is in a straight line. There is no backward tracking or any side tracking. This example makes the product layout very clear and simple. See, many different types of examples could have been used, but I found that this example is simple one, and it is very easy to understand, to make you understand the concept of product layout very easily. Straight line, whether you call it straight line or you call it product layout, what is important? Product is important, sequence is important, there is no backtracking, side tracking of the goods. Straight line manufacturing is being produced, is being used, and for multiple types of, or maybe for bulk product or standardized production, this is the best option. Now what we'll be checking out, once that you are clear with product layout, here we will check out with its advantages. When this can be advantageous, when this type can be used. It helps to fast manufacturing process. Naturally, when you want to produce something very fast and you want to produce in bulk, then this is the best way to go for. Now, next advantage is material handling cost can be reduced to a considerable extent. How it can be reduced? Because whatever the production goes on, that means if you are feeding the raw material from one machine, it automatically goes to the next one, or the next machine is so arranged that it reduces the material handling. Material handling is what? It is the say in-house traveling of the goods and semi-finished goods within one process to another. That cost can be reduced to a lot of extent. So material handling cost can be reduced to a considerable extent as the flow is straight line. You don't have to carry the material from one process to the another one, and then there is a long distance from second process to third one, and you carry it again maybe with the manual trolleys or maybe with the conveyor belts. Such things are not required. Easy material handling can be done in this process or in this type. Use of less skilled labor is possible as the manufacturing is reduced in the simple steps. I told you it is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and likewise the work is divided into different stages, and that is why you can use less skilled labor, for which you have to pay less amount as compared to skilled labor, and likewise it is advantageous. Effective control can be placed with reduced supervision. Because everything goes in sequence, there are hardly any chances of any kind of say disruptions, right? Then what happens is the control can be placed properly with proper or with the reduced supervision. Once you know that you are feeding the material on one side, you will have the finished goods of that quality on the other side after 5 stages, and that way supervision can be reduced. The production cycle can be minimized as there is fast movement of materials in the straight line. When you are producing something in a straight line, the production cycle can be minimized because you can avoid backtracking, side tracking, which reduces the time. Definitely the bottlenecks can be avoided. Why? Because there the exit and the entry is different. There are hardly any chances of congestion, and that helps to reduce the bottlenecks. The next set of advantages are effective production of the production and planning control can be carried out. Quality control can be effectively done as there are hardly any changes in the setup. You can have one standardized quality, and accordingly once the setup is there, every now and then you don't need to change. So the quality can be comparatively be controlled, right? There is maximum use of machines and capacity that can be done. Easy to manage because less number of supervision is required at the inspection point. Again the same thing happens, that if you are using the process, if you are using the sequence, you know that once it is fed, on the other side it will be complete, so you don't need more number of supervisions or inspection points, and that reduces the cycle also and cost also. It makes possible the implementation of group incentive schemes for the workers. See, what worker or which worker is working what can be exactly identified under product layout, and that is why when bulk of the people are doing the same kind of work, you can provide them with the say group incentives, taking care or just evaluating on the basis of this layout. It is very advantageous for mass scale production system, as I told you earlier also that it is very advantageous. Mass scale, for mass scale production it is very good because Once the setup is there, there is mass production, there is less diversification, or there is less kind of design change, and so mass production is done, standardized production is done, high volume goods are to be produced. This is the best way to do it, because here sequence is important, the product is important. Now if it has a set of advantages, it does have the set of disadvantages also. Disadvantages does not mean that we will not follow this, but it has its own set of limitations, and that should be kept in mind by the manufacturer, so that ultimately when he is taking up or when he is deciding on his layout, he can take the decision accordingly. Let us check with the first disadvantage there. Very inflexible layout, as there are hardly any chances of changes. There is also fixed rated capacity without any changes. That means it is very inflexible layout. You cannot change the layout every now and then. The flexibility is almost nil, or there is high amount of rigidity. So fixed rated capacity is there, and that is why without any changes you have to use the fixed rated capacity. Next disadvantage is, as it is straight line production, interruptions in one process may lead to the failure of entire process line. This is very important point to understand. It is a straight line production. One by one the task happens, and supposingly if at the second machine the machine fails to do its work, then it's not possible to take the semi-finished goods directly from first stage to the third one. So one interruption in between in the straight line will lead to the failure of the entire production line. Again, specialized supervision cannot be managed, because if you want that, okay, third stage is very important and you want to check it, then that kind of specialized supervision is not done, because everything goes stage wise and everything is being managed under the straight line. And so if you want a special type of supervision for special type of a job or production, that is not possible. There can be unwanted investment in the same type of machines, which is a costly affair. Suppose one machine you may use it at first stage. The same machine, if you require it at fourth stage, then the backtracking is not allowed. That means from fourth stage you can't come back to first stage. So what happens is, same type of machines is to be used for first stage also and fourth stage also. So at times it is unwanted investment, because the same machine is performing the work, but we may have two machines at a time that we have to install it, so that to continue the work properly. So in this situation there can be unwanted investment of the same equipments or facilities which can be found. Again, rigidity in the process. Once it is done, it is set, you can't change it, because any change in the product requires rebalancing the line. Supposingly if you want to make change in any of the stage, it will require a total redesigning of the entire product line, and that is really inflexible. If problem arises in single machine, it leads to the imbalance of the total production cycle. If suppose one single machine is not working, say at the third stage, the third machine is not working, then fourth, fifth stage has to wait, and those machines will be idle, because unless and until you don't make the third machine work, the whole product line or the total production cycle will be enlarged, or it will be a lengthy one. The individual incentive schemes cannot be implemented. Under the product layout, you will never come to know who has done what. That means if 35 people are working on 5 different machines, means 7 at a time, right? Then there's 7 people. Out of these 7 people, who is doing his job very well, and how his incentives can be provided, how he can be motivated with the incentive plans, cannot be used here under the product layout. That means if you want to plan out with group incentives, yes, 7 at a time you can give the incentives to all the 7 because they are more or less performing the same type of work. But for the individual incentive schemes, if you want to evaluate on individual basis, then this method may not give you that advantage. Thus, these are all these set of advantages and disadvantages that we have studied. Here we are ending up this part, right? But what is important is you must understand that this is product layout in which the product is important, here in which the machine is important, right? The sequence is important. Here it is suitable when the mass production is there, standardized goods are to be produced, and there is less variety. That means too much of variety, and if you want to produce with this layout, it's not possible. Once the sequence is arranged, it will be installed forever. There are hardly any chances of any changes, and such a site or such a kind of layout is considered to be the product layout. As we have studied product layout, in the next sessions to come, we shall go with the process layout, the cellular layout, the combined layout, static layout, etc. Right? So one by one we shall be checking it, but whatever the major points are in your notes, jot down what is product layout. Just describe the diagram in short so that when you are referring it, you will come to know with the help of just a single diagram that okay, this is the designing of product layout. And important points that it is the specified for mass production, less variety, the sequence is important, the product is important, there is rigidity, less amount of flexibility. These 5-6 points if you remember, then it will be easy for you to understand the product layout, and also it will be easy for you to reproduce in the form of answers. So here there is the end of the session. It is the end of part 5. If I am not wrong, it's the end of part 5. There is a mistake there in the slide, but it's the end of part 5 probably of this particular section. All right, so let us check the things that we have done earlier. If you see it, we have seen with the disadvantages, we have been through the advantages, we have also checked out with the example, we have checked out with the content. That means if a short note or maybe a long question is asked, you should have enough material before you to write out enough for product layout. It can be asked as line layout also, or straight line layout also, right? Here the 5 main types of layout we have just mentioned it, right? And here this is the content that we have seen. As I told you, it's about the end of part 5. So when we meet next in part 6 of facility layout, definitely we will be seeing the process layout in detail. By that time, it's a goodbye from my side. Have a nice day and take care of yourselves. Thank you.